I want to start today with a contradiction that I found genuinely baffling while I was reading through the source material for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about the pharmaceutical industry. This is a sector that is literally defining the bleeding edge of science. I mean, gene editing, mRNA vaccines, targeted cancer therapies.
Right.
They spend over $100 billion a year on technology.
It's a staggering amount of money. You look at the R&D labs, and it's pure science fiction. Robots, supercomputers.
Exactly. You imagine the whole operation is like that, some pristine, futuristic command center. But then you open up this report on pharma digital business transformation and the reality of their supply chains. Well, it feels like you've time traveled back to 1995.
It is the great paradox of the industry. You have this 21st century chemistry moving through a logistics pipeline that runs on Excel spreadsheets.
And email chains and paper clipboards, that's what I want to dig into. How can you have such sophisticated products managed by such primitive tools?
Well, the report calls it a broken system. It's
Yeah.
dominated by silos.
And the stats in here are just, they're wild. One that stuck out to me. Warehouse inventory sits around for anywhere from 100 to 180 days.
180 days. That's half a year.
Half a year of life-saving medicine just gathering dust.
And it's not just gathering dust, it's decaying. The data shows that 3 to 5% of that inventory simply expires. It goes straight into the incinerator.
That seems like an insane amount of waste. Why is it sitting there for so long?
It comes down to visibility, or really the lack of it. The report highlights this massive latency issue.
Latency.
Yeah. So to simplify it, you have two giant brains running a pharma company. You've got the manufacturing execution system, the MES, on the factory floor.
Okay.
And you have the enterprise resource planning system, the ERP, which manages the money, sales, and orders.
So the factory brain and the business brain?
Exactly. But in most of these companies, those two brains aren't connected by a nervous system. They're totally separate.
So what does that mean in practice?
The factory might finish a batch of antibiotics on Tuesday, but the business side, the ERP, doesn't find out until Wednesday, or maybe even Thursday.
Wait, hold on. We're talking about billion-dollar multinationals here. You're telling me they rely on what? Someone walking a USB stick from one building to another?
Sometimes, yeah.
Ah.
Or, more likely, someone typing data from a paper logbook into a computer terminal the next morning. It's like two colleagues sitting next to each other who just pass sticky notes back and forth once a day.
That is terrifying.
And that lag has real consequences. It leads to scenarios where releasing a batch of medicine takes 10 days instead of 6.
Wow.
And it's the reason forecast accuracy, predicting what patients will actually need, is stuck hovering around 60%.
60%. I mean, that's barely better than a coin flip. If a weather forecaster was right 60% of the time, I just carry an umbrella every single day.
And that is exactly what pharma companies do. They carry safety stock, massive amounts of extra inventory, because they don't trust their own forecasts.
And that's why you have stuff sitting in warehouses for 180 days.
Exactly. They are hoarding medicine because they can't see the future.
So we've established the current state is a bit of a mess. But the mission of this deep dive isn't just to complain about spreadsheets.
Right.
The source material lays out a blueprint for fixing this. It calls for a total overhaul, process redesign, a new technology architecture, and a very specific 20-month implementation roadmap.
And that roadmap is the key. Because usually when you hear digital transformation, you think of a 5-year nightmare project that goes way over budget. This proposes something much, much faster.
Okay, so let's walk through the actual supply chain, step by step. The report breaks it down into 5 stages. Let's start at the very beginning. Stage 1, procurement.
Buying the raw ingredients. This is the foundation. If you don't get the chemicals, you don't make the drug.
And the current state described here sounds incredibly stressful. It's largely manual. Teams are sending out requests for quotation RFQs via email. And because of that, lead times for ingredients are 60 to 120 days. You're ordering stuff 4 months in advance.
It's rigid. And the pricing is usually static. You know, you sign a contract in January and that's your price. But the real danger isn't the price. It's the risk.
What do you mean?
If you're managing vendors via email, you have no idea what's happening on their end until they miss a shipment.
Right. So the target state suggests moving to cloud-based e-procurement and using AI. Specifically, it mentions predictive risk analytics. Now, I have to be the skeptic here. Is that just a buzzword?
I get that, but in this case, it's actually doing some heavy lifting. It's not just looking at your order history. It's scraping external data, geopolitical instability, financial news about your supplier, even weather patterns.
So it flags a supplier problem before the supplier even calls you.
It's trying to fix the flat tire before you even run over the nail. So if the AI sees a high risk of disruption in, say, a port in Asia, it alerts you so you can switch to a backup supplier weeks before the shipment is supposed to leave.
Okay, that is actually useful. The source claims this leads to a 50% reduction in the buying cycle.
And 25 to 30% better on-time delivery.
So, assuming we get the ingredients on time, we move to stage 2, manufacturing. The report calls this the bottleneck.
And for good reason. This is where that disconnect we talked about between the factory floor and the business office really hurts.
The thing that drove me crazy reading this section was the paper batch record. I've seen pictures of these stacks of paper 3 inches thick for a single batch of medicine.
And operators are manually logging weights, temperatures, pH levels.
It's a compliance requirement, I get it. You have to prove you made the drug correctly.
But because it's on paper, that data is trapped. It's useless in real time.
The example in the text was pretty stark. Let's say a batch finishes production at 2:00 p.m. on a Tuesday. The factory knows it's done.
The drugs are in the vials.
But the ERP system, the one that tells the sales team they have product to sell, might not know until someone manually uploads that data the next morning.
That is a 24-hour blind spot. For that entire day, as far as the business is concerned, that inventory just, it doesn't exist.
You can't promise it to a hospital. You can't allocate it to a region. It's invisible.
Exactly.
So the fix here is electronic batch records and real-time process control. But the tech solution seems to hinge on one acronym, the API.
The application programming interface. It's just a digital pipe, really.
It sounds simple, but the report acts like this is the holy grail.
In a way, it is. An API lets the manufacturing system talk directly to the business system. When the batch is finished at 2:00 p.m., the ERP knows at 2:01 p.m.
And the payoff for that?
The report says batch release time drops from 10 days down to 6 days.
4 days.
4 days. Think about that. In a healthcare crisis, imagine a shortage of antibiotics during a pneumonia outbreak. 4 days is an eternity. Getting that product released 4 days faster saves lives.
So the drug is made, the systems know it exists, now it goes to the warehouse, stage 3. And this is where the physical reality hits.
Right. Warehousing isn't just putting boxes on shelves, especially in pharma where you have cold storage, controlled substances,
and strict expiration dates. We mentioned that inventory is often done via first in, first out.
Yeah, you try to sell the oldest stock first. But if your tracking is manual or based on spreadsheets, mistakes happen. Stuff gets lost in the back of the fridge.
And if it gets lost, it expires. The target state here shifts to something called FIFO.
First expire, first out.
Which is just much smarter, right?
It's way smarter. You're prioritizing shipments based on the actual expiration date, not just when it arrived. But to do that, you need granular data on every single pallet.
And that's where the IoT, the Internet of Things, comes in. The report talks about blanketing the warehouse in sensors.
This is critical for what's called the cold chain. A lot of modern drugs, like biologics, will spoil if they get too warm.
So if a freezer unit fails in a massive warehouse...
You don't want to find out 3 days later when an employee walks by with a clipboard. You want a notification on your phone the second the temperature drops.
So you save the batch before it ruins.
Yeah, precisely. The numbers here are impressive. Inventory days on hand reduced from that 180 range down to 50-80 days.
And waste reduced by 80%. That's huge. You're essentially freeing up millions of dollars that was just sitting there.
Correct.
Okay, so we've cleared the warehouse. Now the drug has to actually get to the patient. This brings us to the next section. Stages 4 and 5, distribution and demand planning.
Distribution is interesting because it's where the physical world meets the regulatory world.
The report highlights route optimization, which is standard stuff. But the heavy hitter here was blockchain. And I have to admit, when I saw that word, my eyes kind of rolled back in my head a little bit.
I get the skepticism. Blockchain has been oversold in a lot of industries.
So is this just hype?
But in pharma supply chains, it actually has a very specific, very boring, and an incredibly important job. It's not about currency. It's about custody.
Custody.
Yeah, it's tied to the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, or DSCSA.
Oh, right, I saw that.
This act basically says every single unit of medicine needs a unique serial number, and its journey must be recorded. Blockchain provides an immutable ledger for that journey. You can't fake it. You can't erase it.
So if I'm a pharmacy, I can scan a barcode and see exactly where that box has been from the factory to my door.
Exactly. And this matters for two big reasons. First, counterfeit prevention. It's very hard to slip a fake cancer drug into the supply chain if you can't fake the digital signature.
And the second reason.
And secondly, perhaps more dramatically, is instant recall.
Right. The report mentioned this. If a bad batch is found, maybe there was a contamination, how long does it currently take to find it?
It's a nightmare. You're digging through paper trails, calling distributors. It can take weeks to figure out which hospitals or pharmacies received the bad batch.
And with this blockchain system,
You locate every single vial in hours. You press a button, see exactly where they are, and issue a targeted recall. It turns a chaotic scavenger hunt into a precise operation.
that's a huge safety feature. Now let's talk about stage 5, demand planning. Because none of this works if you don't know how much to make in the first place.
And this is notoriously difficult in pharma. Demand is incredibly volatile. A flu outbreak, a new virus. These things swing demand wildly,
And the traditional planning method, SNOP, happens monthly.
which is way too slow. Imagine a flu outbreak starts on the 5th of the month. If you don't adjust your plan till the 30th, you're already dead in the water. Patients are finding empty shelves.
So the solution proposed is demand sensing, which sounds a bit mystical.
It's basically moving from looking at history to looking at the present. Instead of just looking at last year's sales, you use real-time data, point-of-sale data from pharmacies, CDC reports.
The report even mentions social media data. That sounded wild to me. Are they really making decisions based on Twitter?
Believe it or not, yes. If people start tweeting about having a fever or searching Google for flu symptoms in a specific region, that's an early warning signal. The AI picks up on that spike days before the official sales numbers come in,
So you're catching the wave before it hits the shore.
and that prevents the bullwhip effect.
Unpack that for us. What is the bullwhip effect?
It's a supply chain classic.
Huh.
Imagine a small increase in demand at the pharmacy. Say 10% more people want cough syrup. The distributor sees that and panics slightly, so they order 20% more to be safe. The factory sees the distributor order 20% more, so they decide to produce 40% more. A tiny ripple becomes a tsunami.
And then you end up with warehouses full of cough syrup nobody needs.
Exactly. By using accurate, real-time demand sensing, you smooth that out. The impact on forecast accuracy is cited as jumping from that dismal 60% we mentioned to 85%.
That's a massive leap.
It changes the whole economics of the company.
So we've covered the process changes, but let's look at the engine room. Segment 3 deals with the technology architecture. The expert in the report synthesizes this into a 4-tier stack.
It helps to visualize it as a layer cake. At the top, Tier 1, you have the strategic layer integrated business planning. Below that, Tier 2, operational, the ERP and MES integration. And at the bottom, the data foundation.
But Tier 3. Tier 3 is labeled digital enablement. This is where the cool toys live. IoT sensors, blockchain, and something called digital twins.
Ah, yes.
I want to stop on digital twins because it sounds like a sci-fi cloning experiment.
It's actually one of the most powerful tools in modern manufacturing. Think of it as a flight simulator, but for making a drug.
A flight simulator?
Yeah, when a pilot trains, they don't just hop in a 747. They use a simulator to practice crashes, storms. A digital twin is a perfect virtual replica of the chemical process and the equipment.
So instead of testing a new process on real, incredibly expensive equipment,
You simulate it first. Chemists can run thousands of scenarios in the digital world. What happens if we raise the temperature by 2 degrees? What if the pressure drops? You can crash the batch 100 times without wasting a drop of real product.
that has to save a ton of time on the regulatory side.
It's massive. Normally, validating a process change, proving to the FDA that it's safe, can take 12 months or more. With digital twins, because you can generate so much safety data so quickly, that time drops to just 3 to 4 months.
You're cutting almost a year off the timeline.
Speed to market is everything.
But even with all this high-tech wizardry simulators, AI, blockchain, the report keeps coming back to that one specific missing link.
It always comes back to the basics. There's a quote in the source that really sums it up. A director said, "We spent millions on a state-of-the-art packaging line, yet still reconcile production data in spreadsheets."
It's tragic. You have a Ferrari of a packaging line and you're towing it with a horse.
The report emphasizes that if you only fix one thing, fix that API link.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the AI if your systems can't even talk to each other about what happened today.
Okay, so we have the blueprint. We know what needs to be done. But I can hear listeners and, frankly, executives thinking, this sounds expensive and this sounds slow.
That is the common assumption. Transformation usually implies a 5-year slog, but the source explicitly challenges that with its implementation roadmap.
Which brings us to our final segment, the 20-week roadmap. And I have to push back here. 20 weeks, 5 months to overhaul a legacy pharma system. That sounds impossible.
If you were trying to rip everything out and replace it, yes, it would be impossible. But that's not the strategy here. The strategy is overlay, not replace.
Explain that.
You aren't deleting the old ERP system. You are building those API bridges we talked about between the existing systems. That is much, much faster.
Okay, so let's break down the timeline. Weeks 1 through 4 are assessment.
Figure out where the pain is. Don't just throw tech at a problem. Understand the problem first.
Then weeks 5 through 12 are design.
Picking the vendors, designing the API architecture, deciding exactly how the systems will talk.
And then weeks 13 through 24 are the pilot, and this is where the report talks about quick wins.
Which is crucial for keeping management happy. Executives have short attention spans. You need to show value early.
So week 16 is the S&OP pilot.
Which delivers a 15% bump in forecast accuracy almost immediately.
Week 18 is the MES ERP integration pilot.
And boom, your batch release time drops to 7 days. You haven't even finished the project, and you're already faster.
And by week 20, you have procurement automation kicking in.
It's an aggressive timeline, I won't lie. But it shows you can get results without waiting a decade.
And the payoff, the ROI.
The report states that full transformation ROI is achieved in 18 to 24 months. But for a large pharma company, the headline number is working capital.
Okay.
By reducing that inventory, getting rid of the stuff sitting for 180 days, this transformation frees up between $200 million and $400 million.
That is money that was just sitting on shelves and warehouses, effectively dead.
Exactly. Now it's liquid. It can be reinvested in R&D to find the next cure.
So let's wrap this up. We've gone on a journey here. We started with the fragmented, paper-based, past the silos, the spreadsheets. We looked at the specific tools, AI, blockchain, digital twins, and we walked through a roadmap to actually get it done.
The key takeaway for me is that the technology isn't a pipe dream. This isn't theoretical. The barrier isn't the tech. It's the organizational will to break down those silos and change how people work.
And that leads us to our final thought. Why does this really matter to the person listening? I mean, unless they are a supply chain director at a major drug company, why should they care?
I think we need to look beyond the balance sheet. We talked about agility. But agility in pharma isn't just a buzzword. Think about a pandemic response or a sudden shortage of pediatric antibiotics.
In those moments, speed is everything.
In those moments, the difference between a 10-day batch release and a 6-day release isn't just about efficiency or profit margins. It's about whether a hospital has the drug on Tuesday or next Monday.
It's about getting the drug to the patient.
Exactly. That 4-day difference, multiplied across the whole system, is a matter of public health. That is the real why behind this transformation.
A powerful place to leave it. It turns out supply chain management is actually a life-saving discipline. Thank you for walking us through the blueprint today.
My pleasure.
And thank you for listening to this deep dive into the pharma supply chain. We'll see you next time.